When you grow up, your heart dies.
Who cares?
I care.
The greatest scene of all time in a coming of age film happens around an hour and 10 minutes into The Breakfast Club. It's the group therapy session scene, otherwise known as the confession circle. It's also one of the most impressive scenes ever written in general. It's truly the scene where cinema itself changed, where the teen genre became inarguably artful. These archetypes, the brain, the jock, the criminal, they've existed within films before. But it was John Hughes who pioneered those archetypes. It was John Hughes who believed in those archetypes. And it was The Breakfast Club that championed this ship of fools. The Breakfast Club is fascinating. They are sitting in a semicircle, and they're confessing their most private torments, and they're humiliating each other, and they're also adoring each other. It is the most important scene in teen film because it's the first time that the archetypes are being deconstructed as well. Not only deconstructed, but deconstructed in order to reach a new sincerity, a new understanding. If you don't cry when Brian cries, then you have no soul. If Allison doesn't make you ache, then you have no heart. If Bender doesn't ignite something rebellious inside of you, then you have no passion. If that scene doesn't move you, then you're already dead. Talking about The Breakfast Club is a challenge, to say the least. Oddly, yeah, I've never made a video about The Breakfast Club. I love teen films. I love coming of age films. It's my area of expertise. It's what I enjoy the most, and I find these films to be the most powerful things on the planet. Films and television, coming of age, teen shit. It's amazing. Never covered The Breakfast Club. That's almost because I've talked about The Breakfast Club in passing 1,000 times. It's one of those films, like the Citizen Kane of teen movies. You know, my favorite movie is probably Scream 1. Never made a video about Scream 1 because, but I feel that there is like hours worth of analysis of Scream 1 just in other videos. Because Scream, just like The Breakfast Club, is a film that informed decades to come. You know, there's a time before The Breakfast Club and after The Breakfast Club. And everything after The Breakfast Club, made within the teen genre, owes so much to it. My favorite episode of Dawson's Creek from the first season is Detention, is literally a deconstruction of The Breakfast Club. The Faculty, a brilliant film, is about weaponizing The Breakfast Club. The Breakfast Club is everywhere. The Breakfast Club is monumental. So yes, it's a challenge talking about The Breakfast Club because so much has already been said, justifiably. I think it lives up to its legend. I don't think for a second that it's overrated. I don't think it's passé. I think it's still powerful and it's still moving and it makes me cry and it makes me cheer. I love this film. It's a John Hughes masterpiece. And it was supposed to be John's first film. He made 16 Candles first, but he wanted to make The Breakfast Club first, mostly because he didn't have a lot of confidence behind the camera. So he's like, this one set, it shouldn't be too difficult visually for me. I should be able to pull it off. I think that he's a pretty good director visually, as his best composition is probably found in Ferris Bueller's Day Off. But 16 Candles looks great, and The Breakfast Club is incredibly intimate. This is a beautifully shot film, and it feels organic, mostly because the film itself was shot in sequence, actually. You know, like Bender at the very end of the movie hoisting his arm in the air and victoriously, that was literally the last thing they shot. So it was filmed in sequence, in order, and it really allowed these young actors to embrace the authenticity within the shooting process itself. I believe the entire cast is extraordinary, and they each have their moments. but I do think that Ali Sheedy is ultimately the strongest point of the film. Judd Nelson comes in strong, and he never stops. He has such an intensity. But Ali Sheedy, I think there's a lot more. There's a lot more of a secret sort of power to her. There are more nuances. There are more complexities, and there's also more of an electric energy, this unpredictability. There's an anarchism to her performance that I really appreciate and admire. Judd Nelson, though, yeah, he gets, I think, most of the best moments of the movie, and he lives up to them. He's amazing in the film. Molly Ringwald's wonderful. Emilio Estevez is surprisingly, shockingly great. Anthony Michael Hall is perhaps the most filled with pathos and pity. Um, to me the most tragic performance of the film is his. Kid Kid chokes me up, man. Kid makes me want to cry. It is the second film, comes in the middle of what is known as the Molly trilogy, possibly the most important trilogy in all of teen films. One of the most important trilogies of all time. Fuck off, it really is. 16 Candles, The Breakfast Club, and Pretty in Pink. This is right here in the middle. And John Hughes, I think, loved working with Molly. Molly Ringwald and Anthony Michael Hall were clearly his muses. And in this film, they shine so brightly. Anthony Michael Hall is heartbreaking, is astonishingly good. And it's brilliant, right? Because I brought up that there are deconstructionist motifs happening here because he's taking the brain, the geek character that he played in 16 Candles, and completely just cutting it open, dissecting it, analyzing it, investigating it, cutting straight to the core of the matter, to the core of the teenage character. Each one of these archetypes are eternal. Each one of these archetypes are, over time, have been deified. They are larger than life, and they have so much built-in power in a very postmodern way, like watching it now, not when it first came out, but like put yourself in my position and you were planning on covering The Breakfast Club. You can't watch it objectively, right? Like when these characters show up, when you hear their voices, you can't help but say the lines along with them or think that there is so much built-in power to each of their personas because they're so fucking perfect, divine. You want to know what movie magic is? Watch The Breakfast Club. That's movie magic. Abracadabra. What goes unsaid often is a way that the film does engage with the political atmosphere that I think is present in every teen film, but in The Breakfast Club, it's a lot easier to interact with. Um, Generation X living within the shadow of the baby boomers, beautifully demonstrated by Paul Gleason's antagonistic role as the authority figure watching over them during detention. Living in the shadow of the baby boomers was a suffocating experience. I love that we focused on teen suicide because exponentially, the 80s teens were killing themselves at alarming rates. I believe Gen X were killing themselves, Gen X teenagers were killing themselves within the 80s, three times the rate that their boomer counterparts had. There was clearly a problem. There was clearly something wrong. There was clearly something that had gone undiagnosed, untreated, and ignored. And that's what I love so much about Allison as well, because she is the recluse. She is, well, we see her as a goth girl, but I'm not necessarily sure that John did. She is a recluse. She's ignored by her parents. She's ignored by everybody. Nobody notices her. And I think that she's like a walking embodiment of how Gen X viewed themselves at their most invisible. And of course, John Hughes's whole thing since 16 Candles was giving invisible girls specifically their cinematic moments, their spotlights. We all find Allison's preppy makeover at the very end of the film disagreeable. I find it disagreeable. You probably find it disagreeable. It's disagreeable. But uh, John viewed all kids as nonconformists, right? So I don't think he looked at it as a sign of conformity. I think he saw it more as the invisible girl deciding to become visible. But I do understand that it, at the end of the day, it is conformity. But I don't think John viewed it that way. And now I also believe in baby steps. But the Breakfast Club did all of those things, including having the goth girl keep her awesome individuality. I thought she looked fine as hell, so fine as the goth in her goth getup. Also, I was her in high school. If I was anybody, I was like the weirdo kind of goth kid in the corner. But if he had done all of those things, that would be like unrealistic and untenable. I believe in baby steps. I believe, well, at least we're giving visibility to this kind of archetype that really had not existed before. But the recluse and that became the goth girl, the alt girl, did not exist before. Not really. It's the only arguable flaw in an otherwise transcendentally perfect movie. But whenever somebody brings up the disagreeable makeover scene, people forget that it's juxtaposed directly with Claire sneaking into where Bender is basically imprisoned and then alienated from the whole and completely just seduces him. Like they forget that that's an ultimate sign of nonconformity as well. So it's juxtaposed with a very, very powerful, passionate and intimate scene of nonconformity. So we can't act like it's a completely conformist ending when it's not. And I think people conveniently forget that it's juxtaposed. You can call the makeover conformity, sure, but it's juxtaposed directly with a scene that is inarguably nonconformist, aggressively so. So whatever. I like that it feels theatrical. I like that it feels like a play. I really appreciate that that sort of speaks to the performative nature of teenagers anyway, and the way that they speak and behave around each other. The film isn't only expressing so much, it is doing so much. It's unbelievable to watch this film after spending so much time studying teen shows and teen movies like throughout the decades. Like I've spent so much time studying this field of art, this genre. Unbelievable how much this film did, like how much work this film is doing just effortlessly, seamlessly, and beautifully. John Hughes was such an interesting master because he made it look so easy, you know? He was truly gifted. Chemistry of the cast is startlingly good. It is such a challenge talking about this movie. It really is, because it's going to devolve into me saying that it's beyond measure, beyond compare, because I truly believe that it is. Like, what am I going to say about 2001 A Space Odyssey? What am I going to say about Citizen Kane? What could I possibly say about Eight and a Half? That's how I view The Breakfast Club. There are so many pieces written about this film. And as I said, justifiably so. Because it's a film of mammoth importance. It's one of the most significant films ever made. And certainly, the teen genre as we know it today probably wouldn't exist without it. This film is so important to everything that I've dedicated myself to. And I love it tremendously, with all of my heart. When Allison said, "When you get old, your heart dies," Bender says, "Who cares?" She says, "I care." I do too. I still care. I care about The Breakfast Club. I care about teen movies, teen shows. I care about teen art. I care about the coming of age genre. I care about the brain, the recluse, the criminal, the princess, and the jock. I care about the five pillars of everything about art that I love. Those five archetypes. Everything I love most was born from there. Thank you for watching my video. Hope you got something out of it.